Why, hello there, my friends. If you have noticed, I'm looking a little. If you have noticed, I'm looking a little yellow today. Is this not yellow? It's like I don't know. It's not what it was yesterday. Um, but that's besides the point. Welcome to to episode 2. Um, I feel like I'm laughing a lot, but this episode is going to be a little more, I guess, serious. I mean, the first one was also like kind of. It wasn't like silly or anything, but that was mostly because I was tired. Um, and uh, yeah, still stuffed up because it is literally the next day. Um, and uh, yeah, um, this episode is going to be about passion, about motivation, um, and my motivation to do various things, and what I feel about that. But before we get into that, this episode is gonna sort of gauge how successful this will actually be. I'm not doing this for success. I'm not doing this for views or anything like that. Um, but I do find that side of it interesting. I find it interesting seeing what people actually like, what people's behaviors are, and what people actually think about things. Because this one, I'm not going to be sending this to anybody. Um, I sent the first episode to people yesterday, but I'm not going to be sharing this one with people in the same way that I did with that one. Um, so I think it'll be interesting to see how many people stick around. Not that I'm trying to like fault people for not sticking around, uh, but I I think that it's interesting from a numbers perspective. I think that like those kinds of like stats and everything are very interesting to look at. So it's not meant to be like rude to anybody or to say that anyone's like I'm just not trying to do that. I just purely find it interesting. So yeah, I'm curious to see how this one will perform in comparison to the first one. Uh, Obviously, it's going to do worse. So I'm not sending it to people. Being like, hey, watch my thing. But yeah, at the end of the day, this series is purely for me. This series is purely to archive my thoughts. Whether or not people listen to it is up to them, and whether or not people take anything from it is also up to them. Because most of these conversations I'll probably also be having with other people. It's not just for this thing. But yeah, continuing on to the actual contents of the episode. I I've been thinking recently, right? Because I started this yesterday. And it was yesterday. It was like what, probably like 9, 10 p.m. yesterday. I don't remember when it was. Um, but it was sort of just like it was something that I've been meaning to do for a long time, but I did it sort of spur of the moment, right? Um, the opportunity just kind of presented itself, and I was just like, you know what? Sure, why not? Um, and I think that 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 in itself is very interesting, right? Because this is something that I've been interested in doing for a long time, but I just have never gotten around to it. And it's not like I haven't been presented with the opportunity beforehand. Uh, but even when presented with the opportunity beforehand, I didn't do anything with that. You know, I didn't I didn't take action before, but now today, or yesterday, a random day, I just was like, why not? You know, which is very interesting because I feel like in a lot of other aspects of my life and the things that I've been doing lately, I feel like that's not something that I can like replicate, you know? I can't. My sock is. um, I can't like. I can't do something just because I want to, or even if the opportunity presents itself perfectly for me to do something, I won't. There's a good chance that I won't do it. Like right now, do you know what right now is a good opportunity to do? It's a good opportunity to catch up on my psychology work that I need to do, which is my major, um, and that I got an extension on from last semester. Um, and it's and yet here I am right now sitting in front of a camera talking about how I should be doing that, but I'm not doing that. And then there's also a matter of something a little different from motivation, but very similar in the sense of whether or not I do something, right? Because I've been struggling with this, and not only has it affected my actual I need to clip my nails. Damn. Not only has it affected my actual work, um, and my actual uh, like life, college life, but it's also sort of taking root uh, in my like casual life that's unrelated to anything else. Um, it is like I know this is probably like a depression thing, uh, which by the way, to be clear, not diagnosed with depression. Um, there's a non-zero chance that I have it, but I'm not gonna ever say that I have something that I'm not diagnosed with. Um, but I've sort of been enjoying the things that I would do as like a distraction. I've been losing interest in even doing that. And now what I do is I just kind of sit there and stare. Just stare off into space, stare at the ceiling, whatever. If I am not motivated enough to do something, I always just distract myself with other things. I'll play a video game. I will talk to friends, um, until and do the classic procrastination thing until I get to a point where either I exhaust myself of everything else to do, and so I just end up working on the thing anyway, or I get myself down to like, you know, I need to do this now, or else it's about to be the deadline. Um, and then I won't have time to do anything else, and so I'll work on that out of necessity. Um, and that's a normal thing that people do, right? That's a normal procrastination thing. Um, but my I guess my sort of question is like, why? Because now I'm procrastinating the activities that I would do to procrastinate. I have games that I've been meaning to play for a long time or like finish playing, and I have shows that I've been meaning to watch and finish watching for a long time. Um, and I would normally do those things as a distraction for um, doing my work. But now I don't even feel motivated enough to like do that much, you know? Um, and I think that it's interesting to think about like why, you know? Because if I'm not motivated enough to do the distraction, that means I'm gonna need a distraction for the distraction, right? I'm gonna need, or I can get my shit together and start doing shit, but uh, it's just so weird because like if I cannot get myself together to do that much, then what can I get myself together to do? Do I just not have anything that I enjoy? Because I don't think that's true. I would say that as of right now in my life, in most in most sides of my life, not all sides, but in most sides of my life, I'm pretty satisfied with things. I think that I am in a very privileged position, all things considered, in the sense that, or maybe not privileged because, you know, gay person living in America right now. Um, but uh, yeah, it's like I I have a lot of friends, right, who I care a lot about, and that's always been the case as well, which is it's funny because I've always like I've felt I guess lonely throughout my life, and yet um I've whenever I actually take a moment to think about it, I have so many friends. I have like way more friends than I think that I do. Um, but I think that'll be a topic for another episode. Maybe next episode I'll talk about my friendships and relationships with people around me. Um, but the same thing can also be said for the amount of work that I've done because like a little one of my assignments in my creative writing class um, has been uh, was a poetry assignment, right? We had a few weeks where we worked on poetry, uh, and uh, sorry, I keep on getting like lost. I keep on getting lost in my thoughts. Um, we had a poetry assignment where uh, we, wrote two poems, and then the next week we had them be peer reviewed, and then the week after that we submitted the final draft. We submitted the final draft, and uh, that was the assignment. And I went in the first week that we wrote the two poems, being like, I think that these poems suck because I did kind of write them within the last couple hours of the assignment being due. Um, and I wrote them up. I was like, these are dog shit, but I guess I'll just submit them because the first draft is not going to be graded as heavily on quality. Um, and so I submitted it. And then next week, when peer reviews came around, I made sure to submit my poems to the peer review discussion late so that not as many people saw it because I was like, these are shit, and I don't want people judging me for how shit these are. Um, and then I submitted it late to the peer review discussion, and one person still peer reviewed it, right? Um, and I'm glad that that person did, because that person, I don't know who they are uh, at all, but they are really good at giving feedback. They are really good at it and giving constructive criticism and all of that. And that's pretty cool. So thank you to that person. Because that gave me actually like good constructive feedback on both my poems. But one thing that they mentioned is that like the second poem was the one that I put less thought into, right? I just kind of like wrote it. I wasn't really thinking. I had like a little bit of an idea in mind, uh, but I was just kind of writing and like trying to make it work, um, as opposed to whether or not it actually worked. But I wrote that, and uh, that second poem was the one that the person was like, "This is good." Like I was hooked instantly, and I was like, because they like said like they were hooked by like the first couple of lines, and I looked at the first couple of lines and I'm just like, people can get hooked onto a poem from these lines. These lines are what hooked somebody in. I don't even remember what they were at this point. Um, but the way that they talked about it, I was just like, can I really, is this really something that I'm capable of doing, right? Um, and then I took in the feedback. I made a couple edits, mostly to the first poem, because the first poem I agreed with the person who reviewed my stuff, and that they said that the first poem wasn't, it had an idea in terms of like the topic of it, but the structure wasn't really, it didn't really work. It wasn't it. Um, and so I changed that, submitted it, and then I got like almost full points on it. And I was like, and the professor just left a comment being like, great freeform poetry. And I'm just like, yeah. um, but because I had no motivation to do that. And I've always considered poetry to be like my weakest part of my writing, right? That's like, that was always the one thing that I couldn't do. Um, and I still kind of believe that, or at least I don't believe that I do poetry as, I don't make it as, uh, pleasing to read, I guess. It like oftentimes when I read some people's poetry, I'm like, this just feels nice to read, right? Like it's smooth, it rolls off the tongue nice, it's easy to follow through, but there's also a lot of depth to it. Um, but that's not what my poems are. Not that that's like a bad thing, because poems as an art form are inherently free form. They are not something that is like, that it is explicitly not something that there's one correct way to do it. And I know that. But also I feel like I just don't do it right, you know? It still ends up making you feel like you don't do it right. Um, at least it makes me feel that way. Uh, which that's another thing, is how I feel whenever I do something, right? Because I talked about how, damn, I need some water, but I'll be fine. Uh, I talked about how I didn't enjoy uh, doing my distraction stuff as much, playing games, watching shows, all of that. Um, I talked about how I didn't enjoy doing stuff as much, but I also feel like I have a hard time telling what I enjoy doing, right? Uh, because sometimes I don't even know, right? Like, is psychology actually what I enjoy doing, or is it the end result that I want, right? Because my end result is I want to help people, right? One of the most satisfying things in the world is just that feeling of someone being truly appreciative of the things that the things that I do, right? Someone actually genuinely being like, "Hey, your whatever you did, whether it was like your insight on something or you just be giving me advice on something, has been like super helpful and whatnot." Um, Especially from not to discredit my friends, but especially from somebody that I don't know as well or like a stranger. Um, because it's like I was in your life for such a short period of time and we are not actually like close to each other and yet I still made an impact and yet I still did something good for this person, right? That's what I want to do. Is I want to have an impact on people's lives. And I feel like psychology is an easy way to do that because even if I don't go into like therapy or something, right? If I do like research psychology, right? I can uh, do things that will inevitably be turned into something that can help somebody. Um, and that's pretty cool. But also, learning psychology, it's like, at least in terms of what we learned in my first psychology class, in uh, my elementary psychology class, that's not really anything that I like particularly enjoyed, you know? It's like a lot of it was like early psychological development and like development from a child, which obviously that's important to everything, right? You have to understand how the brain develops in order to understand how, like, what to do with that, or what possible uh things could arise in that process. Um, but I want to look at it from a different angle, um, it's very interesting because I didn't even get. Sorry, I'm so bad at this. I keep on getting distracted. I have a point in my mind that I want to hit on, and then I just completely pass over it. Anyway, um, what I was trying to get at is that some things I feel like I do out of not necessity, but it's like I just feel like I should be doing it right now. Like whenever I think of something and whenever I think of whether or not I want to do that thing, it's like I can't tell if I'm wanting to do that thing because I enjoy it or whether or not I'm doing that thing because it feels like that's what I should be doing, you know? And that's why it's so hard to tell whether what I enjoy, right? Um, and I think generally I do enjoy psychology, at least some parts of it. Maybe just not like, the fundamental developmental psychology, right? Maybe I don't enjoy that part. But there's parts that I can find cool or that I can find enjoyment out of. Um, But yeah, uh, and that also ties in with this, right? This project that I'm doing now is like, am I doing this second episode so soon after the first one? Which, by the way, this will not be a consistent like daily thing. This is going to be a whenever I feel like it. Um, but am I doing this second episode right now because I actually enjoyed making these videos and I actually enjoy doing this? Um, or am I making it because I told myself that I have to archive my thoughts? I told myself that I have to have this purpose to this thing. And I think it's a little bit of both. I think that I feel like it's important to me that I have this thing, whether or not I enjoy doing it. I want to have this thing that like tethers me. Um, but I also want to, uh, but I am also enjoying it as of right now. And that can change, and that'll also change how often I make them, because sometimes I just simply won't want to. Um, and that's okay. I'll still keep it up, even if I, miss a few days or like a week or something. I'll still keep it up. Um, but things can change as well. Maybe I wake up a week from now and I'm like, this was stupid, and then I delete all the videos and I move on with my life. Uh, I don't know. This one went on for a little bit longer than I was planning on it going. I'm probably gonna cut out some dead space there's not so that it's not as long and that it's not as confusing. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like I also didn't actually communicate what I initially made the episode to communicate, but also it's just kind of how conversations with myself go sometimes. You know, maybe I didn't get done what I wanted to get done, but I got something out there. I got something done. And just like with my poetry assignment, right? It's like maybe it didn't end up how I hoped it would have, but people still looked at it and thought that it was good. And that's crazy to me. So maybe whoever's watching this on the other side of the screen, maybe you can find something out of it too. I don't know. But at the end of the day, that's not the point of this. This is for me, not for you. Uh, so whatever. Yeah. Also, just a quick aside about the last episode. A couple things. One, I did not have an outro for it because my roommate came into the room and I was just like, well, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna give a salute and then hit stop recording. Um, but uh, and then another thing is thank you to everybody who like said something about it and like no one gave like feedback, but I think that it's cool that people watched it. I think that it's cool that people cared enough to click on the YouTube video and then watch it. Whether or not they watched it all the way through or stopped, I don't care. I just think that it's cool and I appreciate you. And if you made it to the end of this video, because this is going to be like a 30 like 28 to 30 minute video. So if you made it to the end of this one, then congratulations. You made it through the worst video of all time. Cause this one's gonna be one of the worst ones. I can tell you that right now. Oh my god. This one was so I didn't have a clear idea going through it. I was so all over the place. But that's also kind of the point of this. right? I don't want it to be one concise thing. I don't want it to be this perfectly structured thing. That's not the point. The point is for me to ramble until I'm done rambling. And I guess that's right now. Um, so yeah, thank you. I genuinely mean it. Um, and yeah, I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. Maybe that'll be tonight. I wouldn't be surprised. Or maybe that'll be, you know, 4 days from now. I don't know. We'll find out. Bye.